Hello everyone, I'm Sophie Dorland. My student number is S3969368.
Hello everyone, I'm Harriet Mathew and my student ID is S39335558.
And today we'll be demonstrating the dynamic malware analysis process performed on the malware sample provided in question 1. The objective of this task is to execute the malware within a controlled Windows virtual machine environment. Before executing the malware, we first prepared our analysis environment. Here we have Process Hacker running to observe the processes that are currently running. And next we open Redshot and take the first registry snapshot.
Then we monitor the processes using Process Monitor, start the capture in Wireshark, and then go and execute the malware for around 30 to 45 seconds before we start the second shot. Now that both registry snapshots have been collected, we can compare them to identify any key changes in the registry. One of the key findings is the creation of the entries associated with reg SOS-HC. This is a legitimate Microsoft Net Services utility that is used to register and configure the net service components. Attackers can abuse it to make activity that are malicious appear legitimate, and this technique is commonly known as living off the land binary abuse. We also identified other stuff such as user assist and app combat flags registry artifacts, and these help and confirm us that the malware was successfully loaded and also into the Windows registry. Overall, this analysis confirms that the malware executed successfully and it interacted with the legitimate Windows components.
Next, we investigated the process activity. Using Process Hacker, we identified an instance of reg.svcs.exe shortly after the malware was executed. To better understand what happened, we examined the process tree. Here, we observed a direct parent-child relationship between the malware executable and the exe file, confirming that the malware spawned this legitimate Windows process. Further analysis showed that the exe file was running from the official Microsoft.NET Framework directory, confirming that it was a legitimate Microsoft-signed binary rather than a fake executable. One of the most significant findings was that the original malware process terminated shortly after execution, while the exe file remained active. This suggests that the malicious activity continued through the trusted Windows process after the malware itself had exited. Overall, these findings support the possibility of living off the land binary abuse, where malware leverages legitimate Windows utilities to perform malicious activity while attempting to evade detection.
Next, we investigate the network activity using Wireshark. To gain an overview of the traffic, we first examined the protocol hierarchy. This showed that HTTP was the primary application layer protocol observed during the execution. We then inspected the HTTP traffic to identify any suspicious communication. While some requests were directed to the AWS services, they cannot be conclusively directed to the malware because it was performed in an AWS virtual environment. However, we identified some outbound communication with the domain checkip.dns.org, which is a public IP discovery services commonly used to determine a system's external IP address. This is a significant finding because malware often performs external IP discovery as part of its reconnaissance process. Next, we inspected the DNS traffic to see if there's any observed domain resolution request for checkip.org. And over here, we can see that it was confirmed that the system was actively communicating with this external service. Overall, this analysis identified the reconnaissance-related behavior and evidence of outbound communication initiated during the malware execution. In the next, we investigate the file activity using Process Monitor. While some activity involved loading legitimate Windows libraries, we focus on behaviors that could indicate malicious intent. One of the key findings was that this file searched for files named login data across a large number of Chromium-based browsers, and these files commonly store saved usernames and password. The malware also searched profile directories associated with Mozilla-based Firefox, indicating that it was attempting to locate credential stores across multiple browser families. Most of these accesses were returned as paths not found because they were not installed on the system. However, this behavior is highly suspicious as it demonstrates that the malware was searching for stored credentials. More importantly, we identified successful operations against the Microsoft Edge login database for create file and read file operation. This confirms that the malware was able to access the credential store containing the saved login information. Based on these findings, we conclude that the malware behaves as an information stealing Trojan with a credential harvesting capability and processes a significant risk to user credentials and sensitive information. Thank you.